Welcome to a Legendarium special about the first Thanksgiving held by Martin Frobisher in Canada during the year 1578. The act of coming together with loved ones to express gratitude over a large meal during autumn took place long before Canada or the United States came into being. Centuries before Europeans appeared on North American soil, First Nations gave thanks for successful harvests. For example, the Iroquois had a 3-day celebration that honored corn, beans, and squash, their staple foods. In the Plains, the First Nations observed wild rice festivals because grain meant the difference between life and death for many of them. Some First Nations included cranberries and maple syrup in their feasts as well. Meanwhile, in Europe, farmers gave thanks for successful harvests by celebrating with grand feasts. Indeed, harvest time would have been one of the few times that most farmers had huge amounts of food to dine upon. The first European Thanksgiving held in North America took place in 1578, more than 40 years before the Pilgrims even arrived at Plymouth. New England is not known for its mild winters, but would have been far colder for Martin Frobisher. An English explorer and privateer, Frobisher was born to a Yorkshire gentry family of Welsh descent during 1539. His uncle, John York, helped him to become a merchant and taught him how to become rich by trading and privateering, the latter being legally sanctioned piracy against a nation that England was at war with. During his career, Frobisher voyaged to Africa, the Barbary Coast, and Southwest Asia. He did not distinguish himself from his peers until Queen Elizabeth's chief minister, William Cecil, enrolled him as an explorer. In 1576, Frobisher began his most ambitious project yet, to find the fabled Northwest Passage. Before they had a complete map of the world, Europeans hoped that the passage would lead through North America and reach Asia with its silk and spice trade. Such a passage would avoid the long and expensive alternatives of going around southern Africa or the more dangerous route around the tip of South America. To all intents and purposes, there is no Northwest Passage, as Arctic ice blocks ships from that route. However, that did not stop many explorers from trying their luck and making themselves the hero of all European traders. During this voyage, Frobisher met Inuit tribes and saw exotic wildlife like narwhals, which he mistook for unicorns. This strange land proved inhospitable, full only of endless islands, freezing frog banks, and ice. Nonetheless, Frobisher returned 2 more times in 1577 and 1578. This time around, he hoped to found a settlement on Baffin Island to mine what he believed to be gold that he found during his second voyage. Unfortunately, terrible weather and ice marred the third voyage. In July 1578, so much snow fell that men on the same ship could not see one another and their eyelids froze shut. Sailors could not handle the ropes or sails, the snow being half a foot deep on the hatches. During this 14-day storm, the fleet became separated. It did not reunite until August, and by that time the crew of the Denny mutinied and sailed home for England. To give thanks to God for reuniting them, Robert Woolfall, an Anglican priest and the chaplain of the voyage, brought everyone together for a communal meal and Eucharist Mass. Woolfall urged the sailors to remember, amid their great hardship, that they remained alive and together, and they ought to be thankful for that. Instead of turkey and mashed potatoes, they most likely dined on salted beef, mushy peas, and crackers. The ship crackers themselves would have been rough eating. Cooks made the crackers, or hardtack, from a mixture of salt, flour and water that hardened into a cracker so hard it could not be broken by the human hand. Instead, it had to be soaked in water or rum and then broken into pieces to make a soup. Though the hardtack kept for 3 years, it often squirmed with weevils. Sailors tapped their hardtack against the edges of the tables or the gunwales to knock the weevils out. Some sailors, if they failed to knock out any weevils, would throw the hardtack overboard. They reasoned that anything not fit for weevils could not be fit for men. Unfortunately, when Frobisher tried to found his settlement on Baffin Island, he learned that the materials to build shelters remained in the hold of the Denny, now bound for England. Nonetheless, he took some gold samples home, hoping to whip up support for a 4th voyage. Any hope for that ended when a goldsmith found the gold to be iron pyrite, or fool's gold. Despite this, Frobisher joined the English Navy to fight the Spanish Armada in 1588. In gratitude for his services, Queen Elizabeth I knighted him. Later, he made his fortune in a voyage under Sir Walter Raleigh that went to the Azores Islands. In August 1594, Frobisher took command of a small fleet to attack Spanish positions in northern France. During a November 7th battle, a Spaniard shot Frobisher in the hip. He made it home to England but died from gangrene on November 22nd, 1594. Today, the celebration held by Frobisher's fleet, held in what is now called Frobisher Bay, is known as the first Canadian Thanksgiving, and the first Thanksgiving held in North America. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.